Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Faye. So today's guest is Amelia Armour, who is from Amadeus Capital. One of the reasons that we've invited Amelia is actually down to Christine Martin at Cambridge Enterprise, who'd recently run a round table with some of the local VCs. And she said, you've got to get Amelia on. And so that's why she's here. And I'm delighted that she's joining us.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. And actually, I didn't realise that Amadeus actually have multiple locations, Oxford, San Francisco, Sao Paulo, as well as Cambridge. Yep. So it's going to be a really, hopefully, broad discussion.
Hi, Amelia. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to see you both.
Would you like to start by just telling us a little bit about Amadeus?
Sure. So Amadeus is a venture capital firm. So we've been around for 25 years. We were founded by Anne Glover and Herman Hauser. And we have offices in Cambridge and London. They were the original ones, but now we have teams in Oxford. Also, we have a partner organisation in Austria, and we have a team in San Francisco and Brazil. So we have grown over that time, and we have about $1 billion of assets under management. And what I do at Amadeus is I'm part of the early stage fund. So I'm investing in seed stage deep tech companies in the UK.
And what was your path to becoming a VC?
Yeah, it's a bit different. It's quite interesting in VC. Everyone has different backgrounds. So I actually grew up in Cambridge. I then went to Durham and I read biology and chemistry there. I then trained as an accountant, but I left quite quickly after qualifying and went to Australia and worked for an investment bank there. Then came back to London, worked for another investment bank, and then moved to Amadeus about 13 years ago when my family moved from London to Cambridge.
Right, so really strong financial background then. So,
yeah.
And you've developed the deep knowledge of tech as part of this new role.
That's right. I obviously really love the science from my original degrees. So that's great because I sort of have understanding there and that really helps with evaluating companies. But yeah, bringing the sort of stringent financial review of companies is helpful, and especially as they scale. And then I've just worked with an amazing team over the last 13 years. And obviously in Cambridge, we bring in a lot of outside resource to help us as well when we're evaluating companies. And there's great knowledge of people and professors that we can go and speak to if we need to. But yeah, it's been the most exciting role and I absolutely love it.
You touched on the tech part of it then. What kind of tech do you look for?
Yeah, so we're investing in what we call deep tech companies. So those are ones which have a significant scientific breakthrough that they're wanting to commercialize, or there's a lot of know-how behind what they're doing. And so a lot of the companies that I particularly invest in, and about a third of the companies that Amadeus has invested in, have come from Cambridge. So they're spin-outs from the departments here. So it might be from biology or physics, chemistry, engineering. And so it's where you've got a professor and a postdoc who have a new innovation or invention that they think you could grow at scale. And so they then come to us and we talk about how we might be able to fund them so that we can grow a commercially, hopefully very large company.
So is the portfolio exclusively university spin-outs then?
No, not at all. So there's a range of people because we might back repeat entrepreneurs who are coming back to do something different again, or people that have come from industry and identified where there's a gap or something that isn't working, that they thought, well, this would be better if we set up our own company, and so they've started that way. So people have a range of different backgrounds and start at different points in their career journeys.
Yeah, but it's not surprising that a lot of them are spinning out of the university.
Yeah, and that's really important in the UK because we have really good academic strength here. So, in Europe, we have, I think it's 7 of the top 10 universities are based in the UK. I think it's 40% of the top 50 are based in the UK. And so it's that strong academic base that we have in the UK, which really underpins a lot of research which is done, which then will hopefully spin out of universities and then be commercialised.
And you mentioned you're working at the early stage. for the founders or entrepreneurs that might be listening, I'm sure they'd be really interested to understand how companies get on your radar. What's the mix of you scouting proactively or working with partners like Cambridge Enterprise versus people doing the classic kind of working their network to get an introduction to you or sending you pitch decks? How does that work? Is there any method that works better than others?
So there's a whole range, and all that you mentioned do take place. So at the extreme, people just email in. You can submit business plans through our website, and they get picked up that way, and will get reviewed. And then to the other extent, we're working with Cambridge Enterprise, as you mentioned here, the tech transfer team at the university, and so they will have helped companies, license their IP, potentially incorporate a company, and then they may well cornerstone an investment round, which we would come into with them. But we spend a lot of time at accelerator events, going and meeting companies. That's really important. It's great when you see an entrepreneur pitch, you get a lot of information about them as an individual and as a company. And then we get great introductions as well from people in our network. And then just through, LinkedIn and, a number of different cold sources of great deal flow come in that way as well.
All channels are open.
Yeah, definitely. And that's really important for us, because we want to back a diverse range of founders. And so that really runs to the core of us at Amadeus. We're a very diverse group. We have sort of gender parity at our partnership level, which is unusual in the VC world, especially for a firm that is 25 years old. And, we want to back the best founders. And so it's important that we give them a variety of different means, to come and interact with us.
That's great. Well, before we wrap up, we'll definitely come back and ask you for some top tips on maybe how to pitch to you guys. But jumping back to the types of companies that Faye mentioned and the portfolio, some of them are certainly familiar to us. We've had Charco on episode 19, Paragraph, Exemplar, Riverlane are obviously quite hot at the moment. Why don't you kind of pick a few out? I mean, not your favourites, obviously. I'm sure they're all equally your favourites. But, which ones stand out from the Cambridge ecosystem for you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like having children. You can't pick
exactly,
one.
Yeah.
You're not.
But you can't on the podcast for sure.
Yeah.
No.
So just to give you an idea of the types of companies that we're investing in. So the sectors that we're particularly focused on are AI and machine learning companies, cybersecurity, digital health, medtech, novel materials and quantum technologies. And you've got all of those in Cambridge, which is quite exciting. So one that's very exciting is a company called Paragraph, which is commercializing graphene. So that started with 3 founders in the materials department at Cambridge, and now we're scaling up, producing graphene sensors, at large commercial scale. And graphene was discovered 20 years ago, and it's taken a team at Cambridge over the last sort of 6 or 7 years to really bring it to the market so that it can be used in graphene, based sensors. And so the amazing properties of graphene, because of this rapid movement of electrons across a substance which is just 1 atom thick, they've done using standard semiconductor manufacturing equipment, and just started in the lab here, and now have 2 sites in the Cambridgeshire area, which is just phenomenal.
Is it a manufacturing area they've just opened in Huntingdon?
Yeah, that's right. So they had an original site which they moved to when they got their seed funding. So their first round of funding, they moved from the lab in Cambridge out to a site in North Cambridgeshire. And now they've just opened this big site in Huntingdon, which is just going to be for commercial production of the sensors, whereas the original site will be used for R&D.
We had Simon on the podcast for the Cambridge Tech Week wrap up, and he was talking about the government call. We know he's very vocal about these things, which is good and something we can touch on later on. So that's Paragraph. What about quantum, for example?
Yeah, that's
quantum still makes my head hurt.
Yeah,
So
I've got the book.
I know you've got the book.
Yeah, that's super exciting. The benefits of quantum that could come to the population as a whole in terms of development of new drugs, development of new materials is so super exciting. And Riverlane is a company that is based in Cambridge. It's providing an operating system so that companies that are producing qubits, so the underlying sort of hardware of the quantum computer, will be able to have error-corrected qubits. And so that's what Riverlane are focused on. And the government have recently announced that there's going to be a 2.5 billion, quantum program. And so that's going to be great for supporting quantum technologies in the UK. And so, Riverlane we have in Cambridge. We also have a company called New Quantum, which is focusing on quantum interconnect. And so the scaling of the hardware so that when quantum computers have to talk to each other, they can use the interconnect which New Quantum are developing. And so hopefully both of these companies will get significant support from this new government program, which, is great for us in the UK so that we stay competitive. There's huge amounts of investment in other countries, China investing unknown amounts in quantum, thousands of people working on these quantum technologies, and other countries need to keep pace with them. And the US and other European countries are investing a lot in this space, and it's great that we're doing that too in the UK.
Ilyas Khan was on, he was talking about that, about the level of investment that's actually needed. And part of the conversation again at Cambridge Tech Week was about the quantum companies were really calling for businesses to come and say what their problems were, because it's still so early that it could be shaped. They can actually help to shape the whole technology, can't they?
Yeah, it's really exciting to be living through this new technology being developed. Sort of classical computing was already in place when I started my career. It was, and now, to have quantum developing in front of us, and how it grows over the next 10 years, and then all the applications that will be on top of the quantum hardware. That's extremely exciting, and I think will be an extremely exciting investment area for the next 10 to 20 years and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, AI is rightly gaining a lot of attention right now. Do you see quantum as being more disruptive? I guess it would be, because it's more of a foundational platform, right, for everything else to happen. But slightly longer time horizon?
There's slightly longer time horizon for quantum at the moment. Obviously, AI, we've been investing in AI companies for a while. We invested in Vocal IQ in 2014, which was sold to Apple in 2015. And so AI investing has been quite central to what we've been doing for the last few years. And I think it's the release of, the ChatGPT system through OpenAI that's really brought AI to the forefront of a lot of people's minds. And you can see the power of what these large language models are doing. And the quantum, the hardware is being developed at the moment, so we don't have sort of working applications yet, but it's not very far off, and again will be really disruptive, but in a potentially in a different way in terms of, as I mentioned, the development of new medicines. That would be quite phenomenal. Really understanding how electrons move when you're combining, drugs with a potential target, and being able to do a lot more in simulation will speed up drug development. And so you don't need to do as much sort of work in the lab. And so hopefully that will have a real benefit for humanity of treating diseases much more quickly.
You'll be very pleased to hear Herman's coming on as well. So I'm sure that's going to be a quantum heavy one as well for you, James. So in terms of other sectors, health tech, Charco, you James just mentioned, we've had it on the podcast already. What other companies have you got in that area?
Yeah, that's a really exciting space, because obviously you can bring AI into healthcare as well. So we have a company called Kibbeam, which is actually based in Spain, in Valencia. And that's helping people who are doing analysing X-rays to pick up the spread of diseases. So they are working in particular with prostate cancer to be able to tell how far developed people are with their prostate cancer, but without having to do any physical intervention. And so that's amazing that you can then look at the scans and get that information that way. And so that's why I think AI is quite exciting, because it layers across all of these different sectors. And so, Kibbeam are training models then that can help with diagnosis and then help with treatments.
So, I say it quite often, it's that convergence of tech that actually makes things really interesting.
Yeah, that's right. And you see that in Cambridge, there's a lot of life sciences and technology, but then this overlap between the two. So, Helix is another company in Cambridge which is repositioning existing drugs to treat rare diseases. and it's using AI to, form a short list of potential compounds or molecules which could be used to treat particular diseases, which at the moment have no therapies at all.
Do your companies collaborate with each other?
Yeah, sometimes. So because we invest in only a particular number of sectors, so we're not really doing any consumer products, and we're not doing any marketplaces. So there is some cohesion between the companies that we're investing in. And so we will hold events such as CEO evenings where people can come together and discuss their own particular companies and the stages that they are going through. Sometimes we've had companies in the portfolio that have been very close and have ended up merging and actually putting businesses together at this extreme of collaboration. But certainly, you can see some companies, so, ones that may be working on simulation may be able to feed into another company that's working on novel materials to help them simulate what a particular new material or a new idea they might have could look like. So there is some collaboration between the companies in that way.
You touched on at the beginning that you've got offices in, multiple countries, certainly the US, and you mentioned Oxford as well, that other university cities are available. How do the offices, collaborate together, and how do you kind of, do you merge deal flow and look at it on a global level, or does each office operate independently? How does that work?
Yeah, so we work on a fund-specific basis. So we have teams that are focused on particular geographies and then particular stages and particular technologies. So, the early stage funds where I work, we have 4 partners, and we're focused, 75% of our deals are in the UK, all at the seed stage, and we work as a group together. We then have a separate team that are focused on investing in later stage companies across Europe, and then a third team which are focused on investing in, again, later stage companies in Latin America. So they're all under the Amadeus umbrella, and so we all come together as a team. That's really important for us to share ideas and what we're working on a Monday. That's a big day for us. We have all of our team meetings on a Monday, like most VCs do. It's all Monday afternoon, and so we come together for a short period of time for all of the people that are working in all of those investment teams. So globally, we will have a meeting, and then beneath that, we then have individual fund meetings. And that's really important, that people are really focused and are very clear on what their particular investment remit is.
I guess the natural follow-on question to that is, do you publish your investment criteria, or are you trawling a wide net and you take everything on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, so we try and provide information on our website about where we're focused and what types of companies we're interested in. So yes, to an extent, we're interested in the deep tech investments and then the stages that we're interested in. So hopefully, then people come to us with some knowledge of the type of investments that we're interested in looking at, and the type of companies that we can really support. And one of the things that I see is quite important in the role that we do is we're taking companies that have amazing tech at the seed stage, and then we're trying to help them get to a great product at the next funding round, so at Series A. So at that point, they've achieved lots of milestones, they've seen an uplift in value, and then that will encourage new investors to come in and support the company from Series A and beyond. And this movement from tech to product, I think the faster people can do that with the efficient use of capital, the better.
So do you provide a lot of support to help them bridge that gap? Is there leadership coaching and programs as being a benefit of being part of your portfolio, as well as you guys just writing a check?
Yeah, that's right. So as you mentioned, we join the board and we take an active role through our board seats in thinking about the longer term strategy of the company. And then because of the stage and, because quite a number of us at Cambridge focus, we will pull in people from our network to help the companies on this journey and keeping them, sometimes people can do a lot of different things with their technology, and you want to say to them, well, what is the thing that you really like, or you really want to do? Where's the big market opportunity? community, and to try and keep people on track to just, delivering on these clear milestones rather than diluting their impact. Because the danger is with an early stage company, you're generally, when cash out is. And so you're always chasing the time and how much money you have left, especially if you don't have any early revenue. And so it's like really achieving things in those first, 18 months, which is important, and keeping people focused on that.
If you are a startup looking to grow in Cambridge, the Bradfield Centre offers a range of flexible membership packages which put you in control of your office and home working mix. There's a vibrant, collaborative atmosphere, on-site cafe, plenty of green outside space, and regular member social events. We also offer a range of high-quality meeting spaces for hire, and for tech event organisers, our auditorium, lakeside pavilion, and atrium spaces are perfect to bring your communities together for in-person and hybrid events. For more information, visit bradfieldcentre.com or call 01223 919 600.
You obviously are in a position where you can pick the right companies for your portfolio. My question is, are there any that get away?
Yeah, so the good thing now is entrepreneurs have choice of funding, and I think that's great. And especially in Cambridge, they can choose from a number of different investors. And so it is competitive. So, deals that are hot, we work hard to get into to show the value that we can bring. And so you're providing more than just money. I think that's really important. It's not just a check that comes from Amadeus. It's the support of the team and the wider group to really help with that scaling journey. And so, yes, some deals we may not win them all, unfortunately, but we certainly try really hard for the ones that we really believe in. That we will try and get into those.
So I saw you recently at Cambridge Tech Week. I was running up and down the Innovation Alley, catching up with people. Were there any highlights from the event overall, or in Innovation Alley specifically?
Yeah, that was a great event, and it was amazing that the team there had pulled it together, because it was really ambitious with the number of days they had, and so it was wonderful. And there's some really good speakers. I particularly liked hearing from Martina at Feature Space and about her journey. That was great. I really love hearing about people's careers and what she was doing before and how she started with Feature Space was great. And then the Innovation Alley, that was good. Zampler were presenting there, which is one of our portfolio companies. So they're a novel materials company which is creating a plastics replacement from plant protein. And so it was good to see them there and demonstrating the strength of the Cambridge ecosystem and the startups that we have here.
Great. And one of the reasons that we invited you, and many of reasons we invite people onto the podcast, but one of them, as I said at the start, was with Christine Martin, that she'd pulled together all of the VCs in Cambridge, and you were having a conversation with her seed team at Cambridge Enterprise. And she said to me, you've got to get Amelia onto the podcast, because actually she's got some really good views on overall the innovation landscape and whether you should be bullish or be a little bit more cautious. So what are your top tips? What made Christine say you should come on the podcast?
That's very kind of Christine. Yeah, I know the Cambridge Enterprise team very well. We work quite closely together on a number of companies, and they are just brilliant, because they're the ones who are getting the IP out of the university and into the companies so that people like me can fund them. And that is such an important role. And, we're trying to do more of that in the UK. There are only a handful of universities where we're seeing spin outs, and we want to see more. And so a guide has recently been produced, which is to provide, rough outline of terms that entrepreneurs should be negotiating around with the tech transfer teams at universities, to try and make it easier to go through those negotiations, because you have a template, and to make it faster so that entrepreneurs can get their ideas out into the marketplace much more quickly to really fuel our own ecosystem. So I feel really bullish about Cambridge and about the UK and our push to be a science superpower. But there's more that needs to be done. There's more support through funding to companies. There's more talent that we need for particular areas. There are companies such as Paragraph who are scaling up the graphene production. They are always out trying to get the right kind of talent to join their team. And so we need to be able to attract those types of people to come and work in the UK. And then we need the experience of people who have scaled up before to help our entrepreneurs in the UK scale up as well, so that we can produce a greater number of billion-dollar companies and beyond in the UK.
You touched there on universities sharing best practice and knowledge. What's your thoughts on the role of government? I mean, we've seen recently Scott White, who was a guest on our very first episode, speaking on Radio 4 about the delay on the government's semiconductor strategy and the challenges of obviously establishing that industry in the UK. You touched on there that stated aim of being a science superpower. What do you think that role is for government to play in this sector, whilst allowing the commercial side of things to actually drive a pragmatic and agile path forward?
Yeah, I think the industrial strategy is something that we need to hear from the government what their plans are for the UK, because in the US and in Europe, there have been these big CHIPS Acts which are providing billions of investment to these particular ecosystems. And we just don't have especially on the semiconductor side, the developed supply chains in the UK. If you look to other European countries, the Netherlands and other places, and France, for example, there are places where we can incubate companies and get them going there, and they can get access to equipment. We don't have the equivalent places in the UK, and so it is harder. And it will be good to hear from the government on on the industrial strategy, because it's difficult for our companies to access that US and European money. And so it'd be good to hear what's going to be done in the UK, because, high tech manufacturing, such as what Paragraph is doing, I think that's really important that we have that in the UK. It will provide huge numbers of jobs, bring a whole supply chain that doesn't currently exist here. But obviously help is needed.
Are your founders signalling some concern about kind of investing into the UK while there's that air of uncertainty around things, or are they still pretty bullish about building in the UK?
I think it depends which sectors they're in. So certainly on the semiconductor side, I think it's harder, and they are looking at other places of where they could potentially raise capital, and they need to raise capital from a wide investment group, but also where there are governments that will provide support. The quantum investment of $2.5 billion, for UK companies is really exciting and shows real support for that particular industry, but not every industry is being supported in the same way. And so it's which industries do we need to support if we want those types of companies to be based in this country?
I think it's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, I can't remember how many years ago it was the Science and Innovation Audit, maybe 6-7 years ago. And that was a really good piece of work coming out of the government, but I'm not really sure much happened with it. So it's like, what can we do? Is it a case of businesses, is it the Scott Whites and the Simon Thomases, knocking on the door of government all the time saying, you've got to up your game? Is that how we progress and get because 2.5 billion for quantum is a large sum, but that's nothing compared to what the US and China will be contributing.
I think government do understand this notion of the UK science superpower is something that people are striving for. So I think that is, it's well understood that, growth and productivity will come through potentially commercialization of, of our R&D here. And certainly, within the world, I think we're seen as a really good developer of great, we've got great academics here and we've got great innovations. And it's all about this scale up then now that we need to focus on.
Interesting.
So I promised earlier that I would ask you for your top tips for any entrepreneurs out there listening of how to get your attention and what you look for in a great pitch. What would your top 3 or 5 tips be?
Well, I think we look for 3 things. So I think everyone looks for a great team. Have you got the right people around you? Have you got advisors who are working with you? Because that shows credibility if people are prepared to come and spend some time with you. Then, what is your innovation? Is it truly novel? Is it really disruptive? What change do you get? Is it a 10x speed up, a 10x reduction in cost? Really clear on what your innovation is, and then how big is your market? And that's where a lot of companies aren't suitable for venture funding, because just the eventual market size is not large enough for them. So it may be a great idea and a great team, but if it's a niche market, then we just can't grow the company to the scale that is needed to take venture capital funding. So maybe in that case you look for another source of funding which might be more applicable, but a really sizable market and a global market that you can target.
Super interesting. I guess the final question is there anything you're specifically looking out for now on the horizon, or you want us to be a scientific superpower? Is there another call out there for you?
I think quantum technologies is super exciting for us, and we'll continue to invest in that space. Obviously, AI is really hot at the moment. There's a lot of enthusiasm for AI companies, especially around these generative AI and large language models. But we're sort of already focused on that space. So I think we will continue to invest in those areas. And I think the one other thing I think is cybersecurity just continues to ramp. So that will be an important area that continues to grow.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to come on. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
So that's another great interview under our belts, James. It's always good to hear perspectives from different types of companies as well as the entrepreneurial community, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah, it certainly is. And we've got so much more of that coming up on the schedule too, from tech editors to long-term entrepreneurs and even people from the public sector. So definitely a ton of content to be tuning into. But what about you, Faye? What does your week look like?
So last week I went to the SciTech Awards. Saw loads of people there. It was a really successful event for Cambridge Independent. There were like 81 finalists in there. Yeah, I can't remember how many awards there were, like 14, 15, 16, something like that. It was a marathon awards presentation, but there were really good companies and researchers in there. It was hosted at ARU, so there were quite a few of those researchers that had submitted, because obviously it was higher on their agenda too. But it was really good. Thinking of companies of note that were there, Pragmatic, Porotech, 52, North Health, all took away top prize. So I was like, the mother hen again, going, oh, I know these companies. Oh, either I know them or they've been on the podcast. So it was great. Intelligence, Ben, his team also won, and he's coming on the podcast soon as well. Some of the other companies that we know were there, Voila, Focal Point, Feature Space. And I mean, again, I'm not going to read all 81 of the finalists because that might take quite a while. I also caught up with Peter Cowley. He won a Lifetime Achievement Award, which was really great, and he gave a quick address to everyone. So he's going to come onto the podcast later in the year too. And then there were quite a few others as well, James, that I think we need to reach out to, although I know our roster is just getting so packed. But companies like Bango, and then we talked about it a little bit at the live episode when we were talking about the decades of businesses. Printing tech is still really huge, and companies like Domino and Xaar were there as well. So yeah, it was really good, really good event and a good showcase.
That's a good point, actually. I'd love to learn more about the history of printing in Cambridge, because I know for a fact it was one of the early innovators around inkjet printing, wasn't it, in Cambridge?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that they've changed. I know domino printing has really become a lot more dynamic over the last few years as well. So something has happened. They're doing something different, and I couldn't tell you what, but we should go find out.
You've had some interesting news this week, though, haven't you?
We have. So my company, Cofinitive, which most of you already know, we made the PR Week, which is an independent industry media outlet. They run the 150 companies listings for PR and comms companies, really reflecting the cream of the PR and comms companies out there. So really big names, but our little company has made it on there as well for the second year. So I'm super proud. We always pack a punch in things that we do. So to be recognised on there is super cool. And we're the only company in Cambridge that makes a list, and we are the only company that makes the tech list as well in Cambridge.
So for the uninitiated, how does that kind of shortlisting process work? Do you apply? Are you mysteriously nominated by someone? How do you get to know about it?
Yeah, so they do it. I mean, obviously we know the industry, but they do it through, your accounts, your growth, your reputation, and all that kind of stuff. So you do have to provide, your financial credentials. It's quite a heavily fought after list, and there's a fair amount of movement on it each year, to be honest. But the fact that we're on it is just super cool.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you, and thanks for letting me do a little bit of promo on there too. That's very nice of you. So go on, what have you? I guess they're my two main things from last week. What about you?
Yeah, they're pretty good things. My week has been really interesting. I was going to go to the Tech Awards, but a combination of still catching up from Tech Week and just being, frankly, burnt out from events. So I tip my hat to you that you've still got the stamina to keep going to these things.
Absolutely. You know me, networking guru.
Yeah, you're like a machine.
Thanks.
In a good way. I like machines. Yeah, so I took a rain check on the Tech Awards, but had some really, really interesting meetings around some development to the Bradfield Centre, which I can't really go into just yet, which I know is a tease.
Yeah, you can't say that and then not tell us.
I know, but I'm going to have to. But, if they do come off, it will be a real significant boost to the support that we offer to both early stage and scale up companies. So very excited about that. And continuing on from last week's theme around the wealth divide in the city from the live event we had and the wrap up from Cambridge Tech Week, the Red Hen Project was in the Bradfield Centre this week, and they raised over £500 at a coffee morning at the Bradfield, which was fantastic. And again, just to kind of give them a shout out, if anyone can help them out in terms of time to volunteer or skills to help them develop their business or donations, money is always good. Please get in touch with them directly by Googling the Red Hen Project Cambridge, or reach out to us and we'll happily connect you. I also met up with Morag from EV again, which was fantastic. So if you haven't listened to our show with Morag, I'd certainly recommend you go back in the archive. It's episode 22, just to save you a bit of Googling there. And I also had a good chat with a potential sponsor. So again, we occasionally do make this point. None of this would be possible without our fantastic supporters and their belief. This is still a kind of very early endeavour for us. So we do appreciate them kind of believing in the potential of the podcast and the value it, can deliver for Cambridge. So let's take that quick opportunity to give a shout out to everyone supporting us right now. So that's Mantle Space, GrowthWorks, KO Data, Cambridge TV, and Business Weekly. So if you'd like to get involved in the show, we've got tons of different packages and ideas to discuss with you. So just drop us an email at info@cambridgetechpodcast.com.
So should we take a look now at what else is happening in the news?
Yeah, let's do that.
First up, Echelon Technologies, they've signed a new MOU. They have a world-leading niobium-based anode material that enables lithium-ion batteries to fast charge safely in less than 10 minutes with high energy density and a cycle life of more than 10,000 cycles. So very impressive technology company. So this MOU that they've signed is with a Taiwan-based company called Gus Technology, who are a specialist in lithium-ion batteries and a variety of other things. And it looks like this MOU will be the start of a very deep collaboration between the companies that are going to make batteries safer, faster, and all of those types of things.
Yeah, there's a lot of battery tech in Cambridge. We should maybe do an episode on that. Nia Bolt spring to mind. Mark, one of the winners of the Trinity Bradfield Prize last year. Okay, moving on. Cambridge University spin-out Cambridge Touch Technologies, who are headquartered on the Cambridge Science Park, is planning to tape out its first commercial chip later this year. CTT, which also has operations in Montreal, Munich, Shanghai and Taiwan, and Tokyo, has credited Cambridge Tech torchbearer ARM for helping it reach its milestone. CTT have signed up to ARM's Flexible Access Initiative in 2021, when it was still in the very early stages of its funding process. Cambridge Touch CEO and co-founder Corbin Church said, "Within 2 years of signing up, we already have a second product in the pipeline and are planning to tape out our first commercial chip later this year." So there's great recognition for ARM and their various new tech support initiatives.
Johnson Matthey, a global leader in sustainable technologies with bases at both the Science Park, Cambridge Science Park and in Royston, has signed a 3-year strategic supply agreement to ramp up renewable hydrogen production with a Norwegian company, Hystar.
Cambridge startup Advanced Infrastructure has been selected by UK Power Networks for the development of a digital local area energy planning tool, designed to support local authorities in the development of local area energy plans, as well as enabling UK Power Networks to better forecast and plan for network enhancements, which is something that's becoming ever more important.
And we talked about this company last week. They're an edtech business called Synaptic. They use AI to deliver feedback-driven teaching and learning to users at scale. And they've hit the news for a variety of reasons, one of them being they've entered into 4 categories of the upcoming Business Weekly Awards, demonstrating some really exciting potential for their technology. It's a Cambridge-based company. It's led by 2 female co-founders, both of them Cambridge graduates. And they're really passionate about what they do. And actually, they're already scheduled to appear on the podcast later this year.
Of course they are. So you mentioned there the Business Weekly Awards. Just a quick shout out for that. There's still a month to go before the deadline. So if anyone would like to submit an entry, go to Business Weekly's website and you can apply from there.
And that's it. I think they're the main highlights of news from this week. So do tune in next week when we're going to be talking to Dan Clark, Head of Technology and Innovation at the Greater Cambridge Partnership, about how the Cambridge public sector adopts new technology themselves.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It will really help others discover the show. Are you a data-driven business looking for resilient infrastructure, connectivity, and the power to compute sustainably? KO Data's scalable state-of-the-art facilities support the mission-critical workloads of life sciences, biotech, and AI startups in Cambridge. To find out how we can help host your compute, get in touch at kodata.com/contact.